Hey, this is Stu Schaefer, and I'm about to explain the best time to exercise to maximize fat loss. Okay, really? Does timing of your exercise really make that big of a difference? Actually, it can, okay? And I'm going to show you an example. I was working with a woman named Kristen. Kristen was doing a lot of things right. Now, we tightened up her food. We made sure she was eating the right food at the right time in the right combination, and that helped tremendously. She started losing weight very easily once we did that. However, she had reached a little bit of a sticking point, and as soon as we switched the timing of her exercise, she was able to continue to lose weight almost effortlessly. In fact, when she lost the weight, she told me, okay, Stu, I'm done losing weight. I just want to maintain now. And so then we changed some things, and she said, Stu, I'm still losing weight. And she had a hard time. She couldn't stop losing weight, okay, because she had sped up her body and her metabolism so much. So that's a good problem to have. And she lost 16 pounds in just 12 weeks. So why does timing matter? Well, I'm going to talk about two of the big reasons as it pertains to especially women in menopause and women in general. But this goes for men too. It goes for all of us. The two big reasons are, number one, what fuel source you're going to be using at different times of day. And number two, how it's going to affect your stress and cortisol and also your sleep, okay? Because that will make a difference as well. Now, if you look at a lot of experts, they're going to say it doesn't matter when you exercise. All that matters is calories in, calories out. Hopefully, if you've been following me, you know why that is not true. And if you're new and this is your first video you're watching, I'm going to splash a video right up here. This video will explain why you should not count calories and all the different other pieces that are so much more important than calories, and why just going into a calorie deficit is probably one of the worst ways to lose weight. It really damages your body and metabolism. So let's look at this. So we got AM, we've got PM. I'm going to go over some of the differences that can occur whether you're working out in the morning or the evening. Now, there's a lot more specifics we could get into. I just don't want to ramble on for hours and confuse you and then make it seem so complicated then you don't do anything. So we're going to keep it simple. So if you work out in the morning, the primary fuel source, now there's an asterisk here, but the primary fuel source is going to be fat instead of glucose. Now those are really the two fuel sources your body can use, fat or glucose, sugar. And so it's going to use one or the other. It can use a little bit of both as well. But if you work out in the morning, you're going to burn mostly fat. Now if you work out in the PM or the afternoon, well, at that point you're going to be burning mostly glucose. Okay? Second, when you work out in the morning, and this goes for the timing of foods. Now, if you didn't watch that video, I'm going to splash it up here. I talked all about how to time your foods for weight loss and fat loss. One of the things we talked about was in the morning, your cortisol levels should be high and then they should go down through the day. So if you exercise in the morning, you're kind of matching that cortisol. You're exercising when your cortisol's high. Sometimes now, if you work out in the afternoon, and this really is important for women in menopause. You ladies out there, this really is important for you. If you work out in the afternoon, sometimes as your cortisol is trying to come down, you'll spike it again. And that can have an effect on sleep, sometimes your hormones. Your body, now remember, is much more sensitive in menopause and in your 50s, 60s, and beyond. So this is something that really does come into play. And lastly, there's more than this, but just the top three, we're going to keep it simple. In the AM, because of the cortisol, that gives you an opportunity to do either lower intensity activity or some higher intensity activity. Now, if you're working out in the afternoon, you really only want to do lower intensity because of that cortisol impact, okay, or effect. Okay, now the asterisk is this: should you do your exercise fasted or not? Fasted means you do it on an empty stomach. The other option is called fed, meaning you have fed yourself, you've eaten, and then you exercise. Now, there's a big controversy about this. If you go online and type it in Google, you'll see there's this big heated debate out there. A lot of people will say it doesn't matter. All that matters is calories. Okay. Obviously, you know where I stand on that. The other side of the coin says, yes, if you do certain types of exercise on an empty stomach or fasted, then you'll burn extra fat. And so they did studies. Let's do a study. And the study says, well, it doesn't matter. Okay, I looked at the studies because it didn't sit well with me. And there's a couple things. Now, I'm just a side note here. I'm going to tell you what the study said and how to tell if a study is good or not, because here's the 3 parts of any study. Number 1, the study has to be a good study. It has to be done correctly. It should be double blind. It should have enough participants, over 1,000. It should be done for a long enough period of time, ideally 6 months or longer, minimum maybe 100 days or so. These are things that would make a good test. So you need a good sample size. You need it done for a long period of time so that you're not accidentally getting false data. Well, once they do a test, well, now it has to be interpreted correctly. Well, I mean, 2 doctors could look at the same test and interpret it differently. So that's obviously important. Then you need to understand how to apply it. So there's a lot that can go wrong from doing a test and deciding what that means. Also, nowadays, all these tests can get published online. Back in the 90s and 80s and such, these tests, these studies had to be analyzed, they had to be peer-reviewed before they would make it into a journal. So there's a lot less quality control these days and a lot more information. However, how do you tell if a study is good? Write these things down so that way if someone cites a study, you can actually go in and see if it's a good study. They need at least 100 participants, ideally 1,000. Ideally 1,000. It should be double blind, meaning if they're administrating any type of thing, nobody knows what the control is, nobody knows what the variables are. It's totally blind. Number 3, it should be done for at least 100 days, ideally 6 months. And the sample size should be diverse. I mean, the sample itself. So is it only men in their 20s? I mean, that's not good. Is it only men in their 30s? Is it men and women? Is it multiple age ranges? Is it multiple ethnicities? All these things go into making a good study. Well, these particular studies that said it doesn't matter if you do your exercise on an empty stomach or not, they were done over a 2-week period with, I think, 30 participants. So not very good studies at all. And what they did was they took all the participants, so you're looking at 30, they cut them into 2 groups. Now you're looking at 15 people in each group. That's nothing. That is nothing. And they restricted their calories by 500 calories per day. And for 2 weeks, one group did their exercise after they had eaten, and then the other group did their exercise before they ate. And they lost the same amount of weight. Okay, so the study concluded that, it doesn't matter. Well, there's just so much wrong with this study, like I said. What I've noticed over 24 years in myself and my clients is absolutely there's a difference. And let me explain why there's a difference and how it works. If you do cardio, a certain type of exercise, mainly the low intensity type, on an empty stomach, first thing in the morning, when you haven't eaten, your blood sugar is really going to be at its lowest, okay? There's not going to be a whole lot of extra glucose in your liver and your muscles for your body to use as fuel. And so for that reason, when you do low intensity aerobics on an empty stomach, you're going to burn almost all fat, and it's going to come from your stored body fat. Not from any fat that you've eaten, but your stored body fat. Now, assuming you do things correctly the rest of the day, obviously the study didn't focus on that either, and you're eating in a way where none of that food goes to your fat cells, but instead it goes to your muscles in your liver. Now, we talked about that. We talked about the different types of foods and combinations. I'm splashing a video up here, and where they go in the body, so you're going to want to watch that. But if you're eating in a way where none of that food ever goes to your fat cells, it's going to your muscles in the liver, well, think about it. What have you done? You've just burned off stored body fat, but now when you're eating, none of that food is going back to your fat cells. It's all going to your muscles and liver. So whether or not you're eating a certain level of calories, you're not replenishing those fat cells. So absolutely it makes a difference. The key is you've got to do the right type of exercise. You can't do it for too long. Can't be too hard, because if it is, then you're going to start eating away at your own muscle. This is where a lot of women make the mistake. They'll do exercise that's too hard, or they do it for too long. They may do it for 1, to 3 hours. You don't need to do that. Now, none of my clients do more than 30 minutes a day, and they lose 20 to 30 pounds on average in 12 weeks. That's the average, 20 to 30 pounds. Well, when you start doing an hour or more, well, now it can be detrimental. It can spike the cortisol. It can start tapping into your muscle, which will slow down your metabolism and wreck your body. So this is why not only do you have to eat the right food at the right time in the right combination, so you're creating the right chemical reactions, you're not putting any of that food into your fat cells, you're making sure you speed up your body, but you also need to do the right type of exercise at the right time. Generally, women will benefit most from doing exercise in the morning. Now, whether you do it fasted or not depends on what your goal is, what type of exercise you're going to do. If your goal is to burn off as much fat as possible, it is appropriate to do certain low-intensity types of exercise on an empty stomach. Now, that would not include weight training. If you're doing weight training on an empty stomach, that can be very detrimental, and that can also cause you to lose muscle if you're not doing it correctly. So this you have to understand. This is why timing is so important, and yes, it does make a difference. This is also why people get confused and why there's a debate. They're referencing studies that really weren't done very well, and they were so short with such a small sample size. Now, in the next video, I'm going to share the 3 biggest weight loss myths, the myths that are out there that everyone thinks are true, and this will absolutely stop you from losing weight. So you're going to want to watch that video next, and in the meantime, go ahead and I'm going to splash up a couple of key videos. If you haven't watched these yet, they're absolutely vital for weight loss and fat burning without slowing down your metabolism or wrecking your body. All right, I'll see you on the next video. Take care.